rankings will be officially released next Tuesday. I'm going to release mine here today, and we'll get right to it. So I'm going to start with my number 6 team. The Florida Gators and Dan Mullen have been one of the hottest teams in college football, 5-1, but they did have the loss early on in week 2 to Texas A&M, 41-38, but they have a huge win this year against the 5th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs, which they won 44-28. Remaining games left, they got Kentucky, at Tennessee, and LSU. You would think they'd be a high favorite in all 3, which would set up the big showdown in the SEC title game against Alabama. Is there a hotter quarterback in college football right now than Kyle Trask? Over 2,600 yards passing, 31 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. They'll get their chance to move up. If they can get to the SEC title game with a shot to beat Alabama, I do think Florida will get to the playoff. But right now, I can't put them ahead of Texas A&M only because of the head-to-head battle. What'll hurt Texas A&M is they won't get to the SEC title game. Florida's got the pass. So that brings me to number 5. I'm going with Texas A&M at 5-1. They did have their early season loss in week 2 to Alabama. But nobody's lost Alabama right now. Nobody's beaten them, 52-24. They did have the week 3 loss, as I stated, or the win against Florida, 41-38. They have LSU, at Auburn, and at Tennessee. The big story for me for Texas A&M is Jimbo Fisher. Everybody's been waiting to see Jimbo Fisher take this team to a playoff, have a chance to win the SEC title. Since he left Florida State to come to A&M, he hasn't been able to do that. I think this is the best shot he has. And I know everybody talks about the quarterback and Kellen Mond, who's been fantastic for A&M, but I'm talking more about the run game. I'm talking Isaiah Spiller and I'm talking Kellen Mond, both mixed in with the run game this year. Spiller's over 600 yards. Mond's in there as well. I think this Texas A&M team is good. I think they'll get a New Year's Day bowl game. But again, I think what hurts Texas A&M is Florida will get a shot to play Alabama in the SEC title game. My number 4 team into my BCS rankings this week, I'm going with the Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney. Winners of 7 in a row until they got beat to Notre Dame. And I know everybody in America is talking Trevor Lawrence didn't play, but DJ Lalangdale, however you want to pronounce it, threw for 400 yards against Notre Dame. They were good enough on offense. They were not good enough on defense. They were missing a couple key defensive linemen, a key starting middle linebacker for Clemson. I don't think this Clemson team's defensively has been as good as it's been in the past. I do think it's good enough to win another national championship, but it'll set up the showdown with Notre Dame in the ACC title game. I would not be surprised if Notre Dame gets them again in the ACC title game, but we'll see what happens. Clemson's got the path to the BCS playoff. All they got to do is win out and they're in. And then the key question will be if they beat Notre Dame and a 1-loss Notre Dame team with the only loss coming to Clemson, if it happens, how do you drop Notre Dame out of the BCS? That's going to be for a later discussion. My number 3 team for my BCS rankings, I'm going with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yesterday, I will tell you this, Indiana showed me a lot. Indiana's a pretty damn good football team, and Tom Allen deserves all the credit. I think they got to keep Indiana in the top 10. They had a shot. I know they threw the pick 6, but this Indiana team is well coached. They are well schooled fundamentally on both sides of the football. Justin Fields coming into the game had thrown 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have the interceptions yesterday. The big thing I got to see for this Buckeye team is defensively. Can they get key stops in crucial times? And can they get the run game with Master Teague and Trey Sermon going here down the stretch? I think personally, Ryan Day, late in the game yesterday, I thought he should have ran the football a little bit more than what he actually did. Indiana was struggling up front to stop the run. I think sometimes coaches, with all this Heisman talk, with Justin Fields, with Kyle Trask and Trevor Lawrence, I think coaches in a way want to get the stat lines up for these players, run the football, do what it takes to win football games. I think Ohio State obviously has a clear path. The key question for the Buckeyes is going to be with the Big Ten rule. If for some reason they shut it down or a team they're going to be playing has any more COVID cases, do you take a 5 or 6 win Ohio State team and put them in the college football playoff, or a potentially 9 or 10 win Texas A&M team or a 9 and 10 win Notre Dame team. I think the Big Ten football came back for a reason this year. I think they came back to put the Buckeyes in the playoff, because the Buckeyes are by far the best team in the Big Ten with a clear path to the national championship for the BCS. My number 2 team, I'm going Notre Dame. Notre Dame really improved to me, improved that win over Clemson. They have not only the speed, they're big up front, they're physical, and I don't think Ian Book gets enough credit. I don't think Book gets enough credit. He's won more games than any quarterback at Notre Dame. I think Ian Book's a really good quarterback that's not scared of the big moments. But this Notre Dame team has the speed, it looks like, for the first time, at least I've seen in the last 4 to 5 years. I think Brian Kelly, I think this is one of his best teams all around. And again, they're going to get that matchup with Trevor Lawrence and Clemson in the ACC title game if Notre Dame can hold serve. I say if. They're going to go at North Carolina. They got to still go at Wake Forest. They'll get the home game against Syracuse. Don't overlook at North Carolina and at Wake Forest. Dave Clawson will have Wake Forest ready to play, and Mac Brown will have North Carolina. Remember, last year, North Carolina, 2-point conversion away from beating Clemson. So Notre Dame's got to hold serve. I believe they will, but we'll see what happens. You got to play the game. And my number 1 team in the country, I think is going to be no surprise, is Alabama. I know Nick Saban said early in the season, for the first time you heard it from Nick Saban, he says, offense wins the games, no longer is it defense. Well, let me tell you this. Since Lane Kiffin put up 48 points against Nick Saban in the last 4 games total, Alabama's only given up 41 points. I know there's a lot of talk with Mac Jones and the Heisman Trophy. I think he should be there. The virtual presentation when it comes, he has been phenomenal. 77% completion ratio for Mac Jones. But let's not forget, Najee Harris, the running back, 16 total touchdowns. He's close to 800 yards rushing. And I know my buddy Nick from C-Bus would argue with me when I say Alabama's wide receiver you, and I'm not taking anything away from the Buckeyes and the wide receivers that they have. But Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie, to me, are the best receiving tandem in all of college football. My honorable mention, I know a lot of people want to see it. There's no bigger fan of both these teams than I am, but I'm going with, for my honorable mention, my 2 teams. I'm going to Cincinnati Bearcats and Coach Luke Fickell, and I'm also going with BYU. They're Cincinnati 7-0, BYU 8-0. Their only key win was against a Boise State team on the blue turf. Cincinnati's played a tougher schedule in that conference. SMU was ranked. UCF took them to the wire yesterday. They still got to go play at Tulsa at the end of the year. If Cincinnati can run the table, I really think they got a legit shot to get in the top 4. But I think the big questions coming down the line for the BCS is going to be if Florida gets into the SEC title game and beats Alabama, a 1-loss Alabama team you'd have to think is in the college football playoff. There's no way you can take Bama from 1 and drop them out of 4. And then if Florida gets there and beats Alabama, you'd have to put Florida in there somehow. Ohio State, you would think they run the table. And then what if? A lot of what ifs, right? What if Clemson beats Notre Dame in the ACC title game, and Notre Dame with that 1 loss? Can you really drop Notre Dame out of the top 4 with a 1 loss to Clemson after beating them the first time? So more to come on the BCS. I hope you enjoyed the Rock Pile, my first edition of the BCS rankings. I'll be back next Sunday to do it all over again. Make sure to tune in Wednesday night for the College Football Rewind, as we'll be talking. We're bringing all the coaches back. Coach Kramer, Coach DeCola, Coach Pasalacqua, Coach Medicis. My buddy Nick from C-Bus will join me. So make sure to tune in. If you're listening to me on YouTube today, make sure to hit the subscribe button on today's broadcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, my top 6 teams: Florida at number 6, Texas A&M at number 5, Clemson at number 4, Ohio State at number 3, Notre Dame at number 2, and Alabama at number 1. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, everybody.